In a world that just never seems to stop, what if the secret to finding some inner peace wasn't some huge, complicated thing? What if it was as simple as a glass of water? Well, today, we're going to dive into a really powerful story that holds that exact key. A way to find a little bit of calm right in the middle of all the chaos.
But before we get to that, let me ask you something. Does your mind ever just go? A constant storm of thoughts, worries, things you have to do, and it just won't quit? If you're nodding your head right now, then you're definitely in the right place. Because that feeling, that's exactly where our story starts.
So let's meet Marco. He's a young guy, just 24 years old, and you'd think he'd be full of energy, but instead, he just felt completely overwhelmed. His mind wasn't a peaceful place at all. It was more like a non-stop tempest, a whirlwind of thoughts that left him feeling totally drained. See, Marco's mind was basically a battlefield. It was constantly at war with itself. He was either getting pulled back into regrets and sadness about things that already happened, or he was getting shoved forward into anxiety about what might happen. He was literally trapped between yesterday and tomorrow, and he could never, ever just be in today.
In this constant mental battle, it had a real cost. It wasn't just in his head. He felt uneasy and tired all the time. Sleep didn't really bring him any rest. And even something as simple as smiling, it had become a distant memory. That storm inside him was just sucking the life right out. Then, right when things felt pretty hopeless, Marco heard a rumor. Stories about a wise man living up in the hills, a former psychologist from the city who'd left it all behind for a quiet life with nature. And for Marco, this was a tiny flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this guy had an answer for him. Marco's decision was instant. He packed up and started this long, exhausting journey, totally driven by this desperate need for some peace. And after weeks of travel, he finally made it. He found this small house, and there he was, a calm old man, just sitting quietly on the porch. So Marco walks up to him and just lays it all out there with this really simple, honest plea. "Grandfather, my mind is very restless. Can you help me?" But the wise man didn't give him a big lecture or some complicated philosophy. Instead, he just smiled, stood up, and came back with a challenge. He filled a glass of water all the way to the brim. So full that the tiniest little shake would make it spill. The instructions he gave Marco sounded simple enough. Walk to the edge of the village and come back without spilling a single drop. But here's the catch. His entire focus had to be on that glass, nothing else. Marco was a little surprised, but he accepted the challenge.
Now, this wasn't some quiet walk in the woods. Oh no. The path was basically a minefield of distractions. It was narrow, it was busy, you had people rushing past, shopkeepers yelling out their prices, dogs barking. It was a total sensory overload, almost designed to break his concentration.
And yet, despite all that chaos swirling around him, Marco's attention never once broke. His whole world just shrank down to the size of that glass of water. He walked slowly, so carefully, with his eyes just locked on it, tuning out everything else completely. Finally, he gets back, and his face is just beaming with pride. He did it. He hands the full glass to the wise man, so proud of his success. He conquered the challenge. Or so he thought. The wise man smiled, and then he started asking these really unexpected questions. He asked, "Did you see the kids playing? Did you hear the dogs barking?" He asked about all these little sights and sounds of the village that Marco had just walked right through. And Marco's answer, well, that was the whole key. He was totally confused. He hadn't seen or heard any of that stuff. Why? Because his mind had been completely 100% occupied with the task. He said, "No, I was only focusing on the glass." And right there, that's when the wise man revealed the secret. The peace Marco was so desperately looking for wasn't some destination. It was the state he was just in. When your mind is fully absorbed in the present moment, there's just no room left for anything else. No space for fear, no room for worry. Think about it. While he was carrying that glass, was he replaying old mistakes? Was he stressing about what might happen tomorrow? No way. His entire being was focused only on the now. And in that focus, the storm in his mind just vanished.
And this brings us to the ultimate lesson of the story. Peace isn't some prize you go out and find in the world. It's an internal state. It's already inside of us, just waiting to be accessed. It's what happens when we anchor our minds firmly in the present moment.
And with that one simple realization, Marco was a different person. The restless, anxious young man who showed up at that village was gone. In his place was someone who finally understood that he held the key to his own inner calm. He didn't need to quiet the world around him. He just needed to focus his own mind.
So the question this story leaves for all of us is this. We all have those storms in our minds, right? So what is your glass of water? What is that one thing, right here, right now, that you can give your complete and total attention to and find your own moment of peace?